Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving into one of the most intense and deeply personal debates happening in Japan right now, the push to change its famous peace constitution, and specifically, the legendary Article 9. This is way more than just a legal squabble. It's a story about national identity, history, and Japan's place in the world. So right off the bat, you're hit with this huge paradox. How can a country have a constitution that literally renounces war, but also have a military, the self-defense force, that's 250,000 strong and packed with some of the most advanced tech on the planet? This contradiction, well, that's the beating heart of this entire debate. Okay, to really get what's going on, you have to see the actual words. This is Article 9. The first part is pretty clear. Japan renounces war forever. But it's the second part that's the real bombshell. It says land, sea, and air forces, as well as other war potential, will never be maintained. Seems totally straightforward, right? Well, the reality is a lot more complicated. All right, so here's our game plan for breaking this down. We're going to start with the case for changing the Constitution. Then we'll flip it and look at the powerful arguments for leaving it exactly as it is. After that, we'll see where these two sides really collide. And finally, we'll zoom out and try to understand what this all means for Japan's future. So let's kick things off by stepping into the shoes of those who say it's time for a change. They believe mending the Constitution isn't just a good idea, it's absolutely necessary. For them, the current situation just isn't working anymore, and Japan's most important law needs to catch up with reality. Their entire case really boils down to three core ideas. First, they want legal clarity. Second, they want to beef up national security in a pretty tough neighborhood. And third, they want to bring Japan more in line with how other countries operate. Let's unpack each one. So the first big point is all about logic. Proponents look at the situation and say, this just doesn't make sense. For decades, Japan's powerful military has existed because of a very creative interpretation that it isn't war potential, but a minimum necessary force for self-defense. They argue this is a legal house of cards. It's unstable, it's confusing, and it needs to be fixed with clear, unambiguous language. Next up, and this is a huge one, is national security. I mean, look at the region. You've got an increasingly assertive China, you've got North Korea testing missiles, you have the ongoing war in Ukraine. Proponents argue that in a world like this, Japan can't afford any gray areas. Officially recognizing the self-defense forces in the Constitution would, in their view, send a powerful message of deterrence and ensure that in a crisis, there's absolutely no question about their legitimacy or ability to act. And the third piece of the puzzle is all about how Japan looks to the rest of the world. You know, most countries are pretty clear about their military and their constitutions. Japan is kind of the odd one out, and this exceptional status can create confusion for allies. By making it official, they argue, Japan can cooperate more easily on things like UN peacekeeping and just build more trust by being completely transparent about its capabilities and intentions. Okay, but that is only half the picture. Not even. Because on the other side, there's an incredibly passionate and deeply held belief that changing Article 9 would be a monumental mistake, one that could unravel decades of peace. The arguments against the amendment are just as structured. They also fall into three major buckets. First, the fear that it would destroy Japan's pacifist identity. Second, the very real risk of a slippery slope toward militarization. And third, the potential for some serious diplomatic blowback in the region. For opponents, Article 9 isn't just a law on a piece of paper. It's the very soul of post-war Japan. It's a promise, made to themselves and to the world, that they would never again go down the path of war. To them, adding a military force into that sacred text isn't just a revision. It's a betrayal of that core, peace-defining ideal. And then you have the classic slippery slope argument. The fear is that once you officially recognize the military in the Constitution, you've opened a door that can never be closed. It could be used to justify bigger and bigger roles that go way beyond just self-defense. Opponents often point to 2015, when the government reinterpreted the Constitution to allow for helping allies, as Exhibit A for how a small opening can lead to major changes down the road. Finally, we have to talk about the neighbors. Opponents argue that Article 9 has been a critical source of reassurance for countries like China and South Korea, which have painful memories of Japanese militarism. They worry that changing the Constitution, no matter how it's worded, would send shockwaves through the region. It could be seen as Japan turning its back on its post-war promise, sparking mistrust and maybe even a new arms race. So you've got these two powerful competing visions for Japan's future. They are fundamentally at odds. Now let's really put them side by side and see where the sparks fly, because this is where the debate gets really fascinating. This is where it gets so interesting, because both sides are looking at the exact same thing, this legal gray area, and coming to completely opposite conclusions. One side sees a dangerous flaw, a ticking time bomb that needs to be fixed. The other side sees a feature, not a bug. They believe that very ambiguity acts as a check, a deliberate break on military power that keeps the spirit of pacifism alive. And when it comes to security, it's the same story, a total clash. Proponents are convinced that making the military status crystal clear strengthens Japan's hand and warns off potential aggressors. But opponents argue the complete opposite, that the act of changing the constitution itself would be seen as so provocative that it would actually increase regional tension and make everyone less safe. So what about the rest of the world? How would they see this? Again, two totally different predictions. One side says, let's be transparent. Our allies will trust us more if we're clear about our capabilities. The other side counters that Japan's unique peace brand, built on the foundation of Article 9, is a priceless diplomatic tool. Changing it would shatter that image and cause massive anxiety, especially among its neighbors. Now, this is the clever rebuttal from the pro-amendment side. They say, look, you're worried about expansion? So are we. That's why we need to write the rules down. Their argument is that by explicitly limiting the military to exclusive self-defense in the Constitution itself, you create a much stronger lock against future expansion than the vague system we have now. But the other side comes right back with a stark warning from history. They argue that legal recognition is never the end of the story. It's the beginning. They see this amendment not as a set of guardrails, but as a launching pad that future governments will inevitably use to justify more and more military power piece by piece. So when you peel back all the layers, you realize this goes so much deeper than just legal text. The arguments are passionate, they're personal, and they cut right to the core of what it means to be Japan in the 21st century. So let's just boil it all down one last time. When you look at the law, is the goal to solve a contradiction or to protect a principle? When it comes to security, are you trying to enhance deterrence or prevent expansion? And in diplomacy, is it better to align with the rest of the world or to reassure your immediate neighbors? As you can see, there are no easy answers here. You see, this isn't just a debate. It's really a soul-searching moment for the entire country. It forces a conversation about some of the biggest questions you can ask. How do we remember our past? Who are we today? And what kind of role do we want to play on the world stage tomorrow? And that really leaves us with this huge, universal question that goes way beyond Japan. What do you do when the ideals you were founded on seem to clash with the hard realities of the modern world? How does a nation evolve without losing its very essence? That is the incredible challenge at the heart of Japan's constitutional crossroads.